So, namaste, good evening, everyone. Time is flying by, and we are on day 4 of this FDP on IKS research and the journey that Ankur sir has been sharing with us. I'm sure it's quite useful, insightful for all of us, and it will help guide all of us in our own journeys. Some of us may have started our IKS journeys, and some of us are looking to begin our journeys. So I'm hoping that the last 3 days of discussion, if we look at it in totality of how we started conceptualizing IKS research, and then we started looking at what are the opportunities and challenges. With so much of discussion and with so much of reading material and references that have already been discussed as part of these sessions, I'm sure that all of you have started thinking about what topics you would want to explore as you pursue IKS research in whatever domains all of you may be. And yesterday, I posted a message in the WhatsApp group for the last session, that is day after tomorrow, Saturday. We would request for some volunteers to share their reflections, to share their journey. In fact, I was going to request Ankur sir to share on that day, as time permits, his journey into IKS, especially some insights from his PhD work on the Gurukul tradition. So I'm sure we'll have some time for that. But I can I can request Anindita ji, Ashutosh sir, Dr. Deepa madam. Since nobody volunteered willingly, I'm just using my authority to take some names. Kanchi Baria madam, these are names that I'm familiar with. Yeah. Shilpa Saini ma'am, because Shilpa ma'am has also joined quite a few of our FDPs. Sudhi Gupta ji, Saloni ji, Vandana ji, if some of you could just volunteer. It will not be a very long sharing because there'll be quite a lot of us. So simply a 2 to 3 minutes sharing will be helpful. Great. So let's begin today's session. So I offer the floor to Sir. Sir, please tell us what we are going to discuss today as part of continuing our IKS research journey.
Yes, so namaste Nidhi and namaste to all the participants. So I trust you are having a good time with this sessions. Now, as we have laid the ground that it is possible to do a research which is based on indigenous ideas of our culture, our civilization, our context, and we can do that in a very joyful manner by emotionally connecting with the topic and not making it mundane, and also exploring something new which is generally not explored. So we have taken all those liberties. So to say we had so many discussions which are not termed as academic, uh, but we tried to bring in those that it is also possible to do those things within the academic framework and domain, and it is very much needed, in fact, to expand the horizon of academia. And because the world has reached very far, and we are just digging out the historical things, so we also need to take a leap now. Today we would take the next step, that doing all this does not mean that we compromise the rigor which is required in the academia, and how to do that, how to ensure that our papers or our thesis work or any kind of research outcome is accepted in the academic world to which we belong. so that we are not outcasted. And second thing is there are few components of the academic world because of which it became mundane. So when there are stakes are very high, so it is always safe to have some compliance. And initially, so how the science evolved, because they want to know the truth. So the original thing is to do some genuine work, to come out with something real, which is low. If it is not the truth, at least closest to the truth. So that is the fundamental thing that the researcher is expected in the academia. Now, when we talked about including the emotions, feeling, etc., our bias, so the apprehension with these things are that someone may manipulate it, someone may give a biased opinion, and which may not be the truth, and which if it spreads amongst the society, it will be very dangerous. For example, you might have seen there was a study which showed that more than 80% of youth is not able to decipher whether the information shared on social media platform is real or fake. And not just youth, this is happening with all people. So imagine if such books are published, such research papers are published, which are fake, and so many cases are going on. The whole idea of plagiarism. So these compliances were to ensure that whatever work is done, that is genuine. Now, taking a clue from there, there is one methodology, ethnography. I talked about it a few days ago. So, in ethnography, people said what kind of proof the researcher can give that he or she went to that culture or understands that. So, there is a scope for the researcher to convey the genuineness of research. Now, how he or she can convince the audience, which is an academic audience, that this is a genuine work. So, suppose he or she says that I went to study that particular culture or a tribe or a community, and I have spent a considerable amount of time with those people. So, when the researcher writes the thesis or gives a presentation, whatever be the format, he or she can convey the essence by some mannerisms, by talking in their language, by giving some quotes, by because that will give a proof that person had been there. So that genuineness comes from the experience of the author. So in ethnography, it is considered valid. Second way is in some work it is shared that the detailed description provided by the researcher conveys the sense of authenticity of the work. So I'll share a few examples from of my research itself, how my guide ensured that my work was genuine. So I'll come to that in a few minutes. So there are various mechanisms wherein we can do that. There are various qualitative methodologies now. Fortunately, with all the digital interventions available with us, we can keep the recordings, audio recordings, if it is permitted by the people on whom we are doing research. We can keep video recordings. There are various ways. Now a person can have a various digital footprints are there in other forms also. Person can have his ticket or so many things can be shared, uh, which convey the sense of genuineness of the work. So the central theme for making our research acceptable in the academia is that it is a genuine work, and we can bring in inputs from different sides to suggest our authenticity. Now, I talked about ethnography. There is a so when people do case studies, So in case studies also there are protocol. There is a case study protocol which is generally prepared beforehand, along with proposal or before during that time, and that case study protocols clearly demarcate as to where the researcher would conduct the research, what kind of questions will be asked, how the data sanctity will be maintained, what kind of transliteration work will be done, what kind of translation will be done, how that data will be preserved. So all those things, if they are conveyed into the research community, it brings that authenticity to the work. So with that background, I'll come to the presentation part. There are few points with respect to previous session that also I'll cover at the end. 2-3 things were there. So I'll come to that after having a discussion on this.
Sir, just a quick question about this entire discussion on IKS being subjective and that it could lead to some kind of bias. Now, when we look at the postmodern approach, and if we study, yeah, I think I got muted. So what I was trying to say is that the postmodern approach itself values a lot of subjectivity. It completely discards the idea that there is some kind of objective, scientific single truth available which can be measured, which can be duplicated, which can be considered as reliable. And the entire postmodernist movement uh, doesn't think about objective truth. They think of subjective truth, and sometimes they even they dismiss science as ideological project. They dismiss science as a colonial project, and that is why they bring in race, gender, and other concepts. So do you think, and you may choose to answer it little later on also, do you think that IKS can be approached with a postmodernist lens?
Yeah, so very important discussion here. You have given a lead to discuss that. So when we talk about the problems with this positivist approach and the interpretivist approach and postmodernist approach, these approaches to research, they throw the researcher to look things only from one lens, and which is very dangerous for the academia per se, because it has created so many problems in the society also, in the academia also. Because suppose someone starts to look things from the colonial perspective, then the mind, all the neurons get fired in that direction, and person is not able to see anything out of it. So it binds the researcher into that one dimension, and therefore the problems like this, you are saying that they would critique XYZ things and then not come out of that critical domain. Interpretivist would go into too much of subjectivity, and they would resist everything which is objective truths and positivist truth. So the Bharati research can play a very important role. Our indigenous research approaches can play a very positive and very constructive role here, because our research method does not confine to any of these categories, and it can bring in the broader dimension at the same time. I will share an example, and yesterday's one question was there on epistemology and Bhagavad Gita. So I will share one slide in which how our systems can help in breaking these boundaries and this binary categories of X or Y only. It can be both. So there is one very interesting article on integrative thinking. I will share that also, which led to the foundation of design thinking, which talks about the possibility of integrating two opposing ideas. And there the analogy by the article was by Roger Martin. He gave the analogy of opposable thumb, that our thumb is in opposite direction to the fingers. So if I want to hold a pen, this pen I can hold because my fingers go from one direction and the thumb comes from the another direction. So these two opposing things coming together has led to creativity. And that is the central theme of the article on integrative thinking, that when we try to bring in two opposing things, something good comes out of it. And that article was on or was based on the study of various top leaders of the world, on how the leaders think. So how the leaders think, that was an integrative approach. Now how our Indian knowledge system can help in this manner by integrating positivist, interpretivist, and postmodernist research at the same time. So I'll just share the PPT.
Sure. Thank you, sir, for your quick response.
Yes. So this is a very detailed slide, so don't get overwhelmed. There are so many shlok. Just we will keep one thing together. So when we talk about ontology, so research philosophy talks about ontology, about what is about the reality that we are trying to see. So in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 13 and in chapter 3, Bhagavan mentions about idam shariram kaunteya kshetra mitya vidiyate. Yesterday also I was sharing about it. So this kshetra or the human body is considered as an ontology, that this is there. And kshetragya, the one who knows it, or the atma. And second part mentioned about the prakriti kriya manani gunai karmani sarvasha, that this whole Maya, the play of illusion, is through three gunas of nature, that are sattva, rajas, and tamas. So this creates the ontological part. Now, just this one single shlok can explain the objective reality as well as the subjective reality. Both are included here. So the first shlok talks about the subjective reality that a person experiences, and second part is subjective as well as objective, that these three gunas of nature are there, sattva, rajas, and tamas, which form the objective reality, but their interplay creates the subjective reality. So both are captured here. Second part is the etiology, or what are the origins, from where it has originated. So there is one shlok which mentions about the origin from Brahma. So Brahmarpanam Brahma, where Brahma gnam Brahmana utam. Brahmaiva den gantavyam Brahma karma samadhinam. So this shlok means that everything originated from the supreme being, the Brahma. So that Brahma, which is the Bhagwan, Nirakar, Nirgun, Nirakar, Brahma, which is creating each and everything. All forms of yajna are generated through that. The Agni, fire, uh, which is there, that is also Brahma. The Sruva, which is offered in the yajna, that is also Brahma. The energy that get released, that is also Brahma. So everything is Brahma. So the origin is from Brahma. When we talk about futurology, like where are we heading towards future, what's next? So it mentions about that the presence of Ishwar is there in each element. Aham Atma Gudakesha Sarva Bhuta Shasthita. Bhagwan is present in each and every element. And Aham Adishya Madhyancha Bhutana Mante. So Adi is the origin, Madhya is the present, and end the future. So they are all connected. So here you can see when we talk about axiology also, so what is right and what is wrong. So it talks about Shreyan Swadharma Viguna Paravadharmat Sadushtitat. So Swadharme Nidhanam Shreya Paradharmo Bhayava. So following our own duties, responsibilities based on own swabhav. So which is dharma here is not religion. I think there has been a lot of discussion on this in the public domain, so I am not going into that. So here it talks about what is right and what is wrong. Again, it has subjectivity as well as the objectivity. The dynamism of dharma captures both subjective and the objective reality. Coming to the epistemology, yesterday I mentioned about this shlok, first one, Tadvidhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya, Upadekshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattvadarshina, from chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, that if one wants to know something, then the person should go to the source of knowledge with all due respect and asking the right question with curiosity. That person will receive the answer. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. The person who has faith on the source of knowledge will be able to gain the knowledge. And tatpara sanyatendriya. It talks about discipline, indriyon ka sanyam, the discipline of senses. Jnanam labdha param shanti machirena digati. So once the person knows, he is in a state of peace with himself. And what not brings the knowledge is agyascha shraddha dhanasya sanshaya atmana vineshati. That the suspicion or sanshaya will not bring that person to any kind of peace. So this has so many dimensions of knowing, and these are all shlok from Bhagavad Gita. Then praxeology part, how to know. So what is the right way to do things? So karmanye vadikaraste, very famous shlok. Ma phaleshu kadachana, ma karma phal heturur, ma te samgostu karmani. That our duty is to perform our actions and not, we don't have an adhikar in the phal. The word adhikar is very prominent here. That, and no attachment with the karma. So that is the way to work. So yesterday there was a discussion, so I thought to put all those things into a slide. And so if you will see that the research philosophy, both subjective, objective, interpretive, positivist, critic, all things are integrated in a similar and the same place. So this can be a very interesting contribution from our knowledge systems. So I hope it answers the your question also. And yesterday also there was a question on Gita.
Yes, I think we can move ahead, and then any questions so far, all of us can keep them in our mind, and towards the end now we can take a few questions.
Sure. Okay.
In the meantime, if there are any questions, and if you want, you can always put them in the chat box.
Yes. So I think the PPT is visible. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir. Hemaji is saying that the shlokas and their connection with different aspects of research philosophy, it was a little bit too complex, and maybe towards the end we could do a recap of that.
Yes, yes. So I understand that it is too. So I was just trying to answer the yesterday's query with respect to that. So we can have a more detailed discussion on that. So today, as I talked a few minutes ago, that how to meet the academic requirements in the IKS research. Now, managing the transition means when we are about to transcend from the initial phase to emotional connections and those things, now to bring it into the rigor and relevance of the research. So we had a brief discussion on that, how we need to understand what are the fundamental and philosophical dimensions of the good academic research. So what is a good academic research? What answers do we have? So at the surface level, there are so we have a chi-square test, we have this level, so it should be greater than 0.7 degree of freedom. This level is there, a significance level of more than 95%. So all these things are at very surface level. We need to go beyond those dimensions of academic requirements, that why it is required. Why are we talking about significance level of 90, confidence of a percentage of 90, more than 95%? Why are we talking about reliability? Why are we talking about validity? Why are we talking about um, the mixed method research? Why we go and collect data from different sources? Why we need to give a proper referencing at the end of the work? So why we need to go through plagiarism check? So these all things are at a very surface level. At the base, it is about the genuineness of the work, because that academic research will become part of the policy, will become part of the society's functioning. It will become part, it will shape the future generations. So of course, this is all assumption that people will read you the work. So that is a separate matter. But what I'm trying to say is about the genuineness of work. And if we are able to address that our research is true, genuine work, and reflects the phenomena on ground, then it is all correct. So how to do that? For example, the people who are supervisors. So I had one professor, very senior professor, Professor A.P. Arora. In the initial discussions of my work, we had meetings of just 45 to 50 seconds. So I would go to him with some work and tell that I have done this, and he would ask a simple question. And I had to say him, sir, I'll get back to you. He said, okay, we'll meet next. So initial meetings were of 45 seconds, 50 seconds, not even a minute many times. And to answer his questions, I used to take 2, 3 months, because his questions were very fundamental in nature. How, why, what, when, where. And to build an argument, build a case so that I can plead my case in front of him, it took a lot of time. So people who are in the supervisory role, we can guide the candidate or our doctoral student to that direction and let them come up with the logic, argument, proof, etc. Second thing, as a supervisor, we'll have to, so if some we have some researcher who is doing such kind of work, then many times we'll also have to read new things. So I remember I went to my professor, the same Professor Epurara, and I said that I saw this. This kind of research is being done by people and etc. He said, okay, so give me the reference. So I mentioned that this is a book, and in that it is published by prominent author, prominent publication house. He said, okay. So a few days later, when I went to library, I saw that he had issued that book and he read that book. And then when next time I gave that point, he said, okay, yes, you can go ahead. That is available. So when we come up with a base, a logic, then the genuine researchers and supervisors will support us. So now, if you are a research scholar into that phase, so whenever you are confronted with a question, uh, or by an examiner, by supervisor, or by research community, when you go to conferences, don't get offended. In fact, those are very good pointers for you to give answers. So talk to a lot of people and listen to their critique. Note all those questions. What kind of questions are being asked? What are the category of questions? What are they demanding? Do they want a reference? Do they want a support for the data? What is the thing that they are trying to ask? And if we address those things in our research, then nobody is going to reject it. People will be happy. So provide references, and references you can get for anything. Now in the digital world, huge databases are there of Elsevier, Scopus, Emerald, ResearchGate, Academia, Google Scholar. So many things are there. Many libraries have gone digital. So many resources are available that you can bring it from any part of the world to substantiate your work. So this is possible. And as I mentioned that there are many advanced tools available now. With the help of AI, we can do a lot of work. So we have bibliometric analysis. So you can do, there are tools available to do bibliometric analysis, wherein you can dump in lakhs of uh, the data and big data analytics you can do. Now, why would anybody then reject your work if it is based on a, say, data of 1 lakh research papers? So, Dr. Puneet Bindlishji, of whom I was talking, so at that time, about 10, 15 years ago, he did a lot of bibliometric analysis and used coding, etc., to come up with the synthesis of the research papers in leadership domain from 1 lakh research papers. So he didn't read all those papers, but the research information files, RIS files, they helped him to do a macro analysis. Now, from there, when says that I have analyzed 1 lakh research papers and this is the research gap, now who is going to reject it? So that is the way to build our argument. Another thing is there are some great people, some great authors whose names have carry authenticity. So if people are sensible, any examiner or the person who is evaluating your research work in conference, etc., or journal, if they are sensible, they this academic world also values verbal testimony in a quiet manner. So they won't say that they are acknowledging it, but the the weightage of certain people is always higher. For example, suppose uh, Abdul Kalam ji is there and he has given some suggestion or work on XYZ thing. So his words carry a weightage. Now his book on suppose someone is working on historical statistics. So there is one person, Angus Madison, he has done a thorough research work on historical statistics. So when I went with the data from Angus Madison, a person was critical as to how we can consider the work of Angus Madison to be authentic. I suggested him that even Abdul Kalam ji has cited him for some economic data. Now suddenly that person didn't ask the next question, and he said, "Okay." So uh, there are great researchers, there are great people whose values, whose words have huge weightage. So as we search, as we put on Google Scholar, you can see the line, "We are standing on the shoulder of giants." So let us stand on the shoulder of giants and put forward our point with full confidence. In fact, if you will see that for past 4 days, whatever I have been saying is because of those some great people uh, whose words I trusted, and whose words are irrefutable. And because of their thorough research and reading, uh, I am able to put it and with this confidence. So just before beginning this session, this FDP, I shared this presentation with Professor Rajan Gupta. And when he said that this is very important, you are going in the right direction, now I don't need to be afraid of anything. I don't need to be apologetic of anything. I can understand that my work is authentic, and it conveys the authenticity. So, just like in the judiciary, you would have seen there is the concept of precedence of the cases. So, if a good lawyer is considered to be a very good lawyer while arguing the case, he or she is able to give the precedence of past cases that this happened there, this happened in this case, in the judgment of Supreme Court. Now, with that precedence, it is very easy to build the argument. So similarly, in the academic world, we can draw a clue from the judiciary that the authenticity of the precedents can help us build the right argument. So I hope this can make sense and give you a good points on how we can ensure that our work is considered authentic and meets the academic requirements also.
Sir, can we pause and take questions?
Yes, yes, I understand. There are so many things now.
Yeah. Just a moment. I'll just go back. So I have put in the chat box some books on decolonization as suggested by Sir. So please check that this book list. So there is a question by Sudhi Gupta ji. Can you please explain praxeology? I think a lot of us would be grateful if you could go back to the table of ontology, epistemology, axiology, and we could kind of look at it once again.
Yes, yes, sure.
Yes. Meanwhile, if there are any other questions for Sir with respect to how IKS research can meet up with academic requirements, you may put it in the chat box. First, we'll look at that table once again. I think quite a few of us would want to stay with it for some time, understand it, absorb it, and then probably that will help us better. Yes.
Okay, so um, please put aside the right all the shlok etc. I'll just mention about the on. I share another PPT which will be more useful to understand this. Um, yes. Is the screen visible?
Yes, sir, it's
Yeah.
visible.
So I'll come to that slide later. I'll explain it through this slide. It will make things easier. So uh, we'll take the route from right hand side of the part wherein it is there is in Hindi it is mentioned he hetu han hanupay. The context which we were discussing, 4 dimensions of the research. Now, when we talk about the ontology, in the indigenous or the Bharati culture, it is known as tark. Many times people consider as tark to be logic, but it is a broad in the broader sense. The word tark is about the ontology. What is ontology? Ontology is the understanding of the scenario. What is the reality? What is the form of reality? So it has different components like from where the origin was there. So when we talk about origin, कि अच्छा ये चीज कहाँ से आई? From where it originated? What is the start? From where it started? What is the origins of things? So that talks about the etiology. That is origin, study of origin of anything. One component is origin, the another component is futurology. That is the from where it will head to. So if we are in the present, what is the future? What next? What is there in the end? What is the vision? So that talks about the futurology. So one is past, another is future. And when we talk about the axiology, that is the what is just like we have axis, x-axis and y-axis. So what is right and what is wrong? So in as per the ontology or the reality phenomena, what is right, what is wrong? What are certain norms? So suppose we are having a online meeting. So we have certain norms about online meeting, like keep your phones on mute, keep the Google Meet on mute, keep the video on if you are in a professional setting. If you are in a personal setting, keep the video off. So there are certain norms which which suggest the do's and don'ts, rights and wrong. So that part is the axiology. The praxeology is about the practice of how things are done. It is about the how part, how things are put into practice. So it is related to word practice. which is about in that systems what are the standard operating procedures. So this is the step one, then take the step two, step three, four, five, six. So what are the procedures uh, that are followed? So that is these four components create are part of the ontology, the reality which we are trying to study. Suppose someone is doing study on education system, and suppose someone is doing on health system, suppose someone is doing on corporation. So if he or she wants to bring in the ontology component, then look at the origins of that domain. What are some visionary studies? What are the future predictions? What things are considered right and wrong in that system? What are some common procedures? And all this we do in the literature review, knowingly or unknowingly. So this whole literature concept of literature review is to ensure that the researcher knows the ontology of the phenomena very well. So the holistic literature review, a good literature review, captures these dimensions of the phenomena. Uh, I'll wait here. If things are clear till now, then we can proceed.
Yes, please give some acknowledgement. Is it clear up till here for everyone? Yes, yes, sir. I think we can go ahead.
Okay.
There are two questions by Vijay, sir, but we
Okay.
will take it after you complete this part.
Okay. Okay. Now, when we know the phenomena, then we come to the next part. That is the now our research gap, our research objectives, our research questions. Then we need to answer what is things which we want to know. So epistemology is about ways of knowing, how to know, the Praman Shastra, Pratyaksha, Anuman, Upman, Agam, and in epistemology, the ways of knowing. So the research philosophy, you can skip the Hanupai part for as of now. The block in the left hand side on the bottommost, you can skip that part for it. I'm coming to the epistemology from now. Now epistemology is the ways of knowing, how we will know or do research about that phenomena. From for that we all have all the methodologies, whether and the approaches, whether it is positivist, interpretivist, postmodernist, qualitative, quantitative. So the approaches and methodologies are there. And from those methodologies, like for each methodology, we have different methods of research. So this epistemology then unfolds into the methods. Unfortunately, most of the academic discussions happen at the surface level. As I was mentioning that most of the discussions are at the level of methods, a few on methodology, very rarely on epistemology. And this whole idea of literature review being able to help us understand the ontology is not shared very explicitly with the scholars, and because of which many people don't feel afraid of research philosophy while they are doing doctor of philosophy. So there is nothing to be afraid of, and this all things puts into one frame of our research.
Yes, absolutely well said, sir. In fact, in 2023, when I had a chance to attend a workshop um, on qualitative research methods, the very first statement that was shared by the instructor or the facilitator was that whenever you begin with research, you must very explicitly state your ontological and epistemological position. Because if you do that, you have a rationale and justification for your methodology. Consequently, the methods that you choose and the tools that you employ to collect data. What I have observed in our context is that we take the discussion in a completely opposite direction. we start thinking and discussing tools and methods uh, directly without paying attention to research or philosophy. So, for example, he discussed with us different research philosophies like positivism, post positivism, social constructivism, interpretivist approach, also the PRA approach, which is very popular in public health and medical sciences, participatory, rural appraisal, and action research. So these were some philosophies, and he told us explicitly that once your research philosophy is defined, only then you can go ahead and decide your methodology, methods, and tools. So thank you for making it very clear and explicit with your explanation. Okay, so now can we take a few questions?
Yes, yes. So I'm
So,
going to.
yeah, Sudhi ji, आपका question answer हुआ. What is, sir? Sudhi ji had the question about what is praxeology.
Yes, so I think it is clear now.
Yeah, Sudhi ji, I hope it's clear. Okay. There are questions. We'll take questions by Vijay sir.
Okay.
He's saying that there may be examples of similar decolonization experiences among other populations or countries which were enslaved. So do they have similar type of native knowledge systems? So I tried to answer it very briefly because I have read about African knowledge system, Native American knowledge system. Of course, there is Chinese knowledge system also, but you can elaborate, sir.
Yes, yes. So, Vijay ji and Nidhi ji, yes, you are all right that almost many all the countries of the world which were colonized by the British, so their indigenous knowledge disappeared. And after gaining the independence, many countries have worked on this. Iran has, as you mentioned, Africa has done, China has done, Latin America has done, New Zealand has done. Linda Smith of whom I was talking about. So New Zealand has done, Canada has done it. There are studies from Iran also. Iraq has done it. I was mentioning about Professor C.K. Raju. So there was very important research or decolonization with respect to the mathematics field, and a conference was held in Iran. So China has done a lot of work, although they package it in for the Western audience also, but they have done a lot of fundamental work in their own studies. So there's a huge movement across the world uh, of the indigenous knowledge systems, and people are realizing what kind of things that they can do. So there are so many studies. You can just search for these words, indigenous knowledge systems, and many cultures, tribes, they talk about it.
Yes, and there is Vijayji. There's also something called indigenous research methods. I was reading about doing qualitative interviews, interview research, and there's a very good book for anyone interested in interview research by UV Flick. And he specifically talks about how there are different techniques of doing interviews in indigenous contexts. So if you were to interview members of a particular culture, of a particular tribe, then there are specific ways to do it, and that is different from the regular way of doing qualitative interviews. So a connected question which also I tried to answer in the chat box: have they developed similar to IKS as response to a colonial rule? So I believe the examples that sir was mentioning, Africa, New Zealand, and New Zealand has lot of academic literature on the Maori tribe. Uh, I definitely know of African studies and Latin American studies and Chinese studies, and my understanding is that these have become very well entrenched and very institutionalized in Western academia. If you go to any Western university, you'll have a Chinese studies department, you'll have a Middle Eastern studies department, African studies department. But unfortunately, for India studies, they have clubbed it under South Asia studies, right? They don't have, they do have Indology, which is very, very distorted. Indology is looking at Indian knowledge systems from a very colonial Western perspective, but uh, uh, these knowledge systems have become institutionalized. They offer scholarships, they give grants, and they encourage indigenous researchers to come to Western universities and do research in these areas. Unfortunately, for some reason, that is a question of research in itself. Why has India studies or IKS not flourished in the West as it should have? And it has flourished, in fact, under the distorted banner of Indology. So I think this is a research question that we all need to investigate. Okay, I hope Vijayji that answers your question. Okay, Hemaji's question will take, sir. How do we distinguish between realities or our approach to reality in context of IKS?
I requested her to elaborate. I think she has mentioned. I'm referring to example of positive objective reality versus subjective. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Hemaji, uh, as I mentioned, yeah, 2 3 days ago also and today also, that our conceptualization of reality has both positivist as well as the objective as well as subjective reality. I'll give you an example of it. It will be a slightly confusing, but allow it to settle down. So there is a discussion between Bhagwan Krishna and Uddhav ji. So who is his relative brother only. So Uddhav ji requested Bhagwan Krishna to share the words of wisdom, and whatever explanation was given by Bhagwan Krishna, that is considered as Uddhav Gita. So we have Bhagavad Gita when Arjun and Bhagwan Krishna had discussions on the battlefield. This is discussion between Bhagwan Krishna and Uddhav ji, which is called as Uddhav Gita. And while explaining the concept of Maya, this whole illusionary world, at the end, Bhagwan, after explaining all these concepts of Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, of Sthul Sharir, Sukshma Sharir, Atma, etc., Bhagwan says, whatever we are seeing, whatever we are speaking, whatever we consume through five senses, it's all illusion, including the discussion that we are having right now. So Bhagwan's avatar, Bhagwan said that this is also an illusionary because it is part of Maya. So you can see the whole discussion was on the objective part of the reality of the physical body, the mental body, the Atma, the universe. And at the end, Bhagwan says this all is illusion. So it has both component, subjective as well as objective. There is a paucity of time, otherwise one more story I am reminded of, but that I will share tomorrow. I think we'll lose out on another question. Yes.
Yes.
So Sudhiji's question I think is also very important. That
Yes,
when we talk about praxeology, the shlok that I mentioned was related to Nishkam Karma, that is taking action without worrying the results. So it is very important to see that when we say that in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan says, Karma kiye ja phal ki chinta mat kar. So this translation has created all the confusion. Bhagwan never said about phal ki chinta mat kar. The phrase that is used in Bhagavad Gita is anasakta karma, which does not mean that we don't give a thought over the probable outcomes of our action. So it is not about doing purposeless work. It is not about not thinking about the outcomes of our action. So we need to give a thought on the possible outcomes of our action and then work in the Nishkam Karma mode. That is made clear in chapter 18. So this shlok on Karmanyavadhikarastha is from chapter 2, but the point that comes in chapter 18 is very important, wherein Bhagwan mentions that any karma which is done without giving proper thought on what could be the implications of this action, that karma is asuric, or that karma is not right. For example, if I put a gun in my hand and I say, I just fire bullets and I say, Phal ki chinta mat kar. So that is not what Bhagavad Gita teaches. So I need to be mindful. I need to know, be conscious of what kind of work I'm doing. The detachment should be from the fruits of action at the mental level. For example, if I am a archer and in the Olympics, I am there to shoot it. Now my focus should be on the target. And if I don't focus on the target, I will shoot it anywhere. Phal ki chinta mat kar. So that will be very dangerous. So I need to focus on the my target. And once I shot the arrow, now that what will happen is not in my hands. So I made all proper efforts to in that direction. So that does not mean that I don't lead a purposeful life. So many wrong interpretations are there on the internet. Some moh maya hai, some moh maya hai, and people ignore. People don't work with focus. So that is not talked in Bhagavad Gita. In fact, focus on outcomes should be there. Hal, the results, we should not be attached to it. Physically, it will come. I can, if I work for a student asked me a very important question. So, sir, should we not expect our salaries if we want to do Nishkam Karma? So I told that you should get salary. Nobody, you should get all the rewards, all the awards you should get. This does not mean that Nishkam Karma does not mean that you cannot get award. What Nishkam Karma teaches is whether you get award or not, your work is not affected by it. So many employers use this, Are Nishkam Karma karo and forget everything. So this is not for the employers to utilize the tool to not give salaries or awards and incentives. It is about mental detachment from those fruits of action. So, so I thought that it needs to be discussed. It served two purpose. Your question served two purpose. Thank you.
So there, yes, I think Sudhi ji has got her answers. It means do action for getting the result, but don't keep yourself attached to the result always. I think be accepting of what you get. Great. There was a question from Vandana ji, which I couldn't really understand. Vandana ji, if you are still there, I'm just trying to locate you. Yeah.
In IKS, how you see towards research philosophies. So research philosophy is, I think I answered it, Vandana ji. So the research philosophy comes from these two dimensions. As I mentioned, the ontology, it is called as Tark. Tarka Shastra, that comprises of the different dimensions of the research. There are various mechanisms within that. The padarth, the concept of padarth is there. The concept of uddesh, lakshan, pariksha, phenomena. So there are so many things which are part of Tarka Sangra, and within that, Praman Shastra is also there. So if you want to go more into depth, there's a Tarka Sangra of Annam Bhatt. You can see that. Another thing is you can from Kautilya Arthashastra, there is a book by Chokhamba publication on Kautilya Arthashastra. So that has a one section on Tantra Yukti, which has 32 different dimensions, which captures the research philosophy. So you can refer to that also. These two things are there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I will be sharing the reading material that sir has shared with me subsequently in the group. I've already put it for all of you in the chat box. And since sir was mentioning bibliometric analysis, I must inform the participants that we are in fact starting an FDP on bibliometric analysis using our software next week from 5th May to 10th May. So the details have just been shared in the chat box. Please feel free to check them out. If you are part of one of the many NLD groups that we already have. You will always receive the details about the upcoming FDPs. But yes, we are doing something on bibliometric analysis starting 5th of May. Also, sir, one question that I think we could conclude this discussion with, one challenge or one hiccup that we may face in terms of IKS research, especially in terms of publications. And many a times this is discussed at many avenues, that there are not many platforms in the mainstream which are accepting of IKS research. So, for example, some big research platforms like Scopus or others, and mainstream publications, they may not be very accepting of IKS research. That's one. And second is that a lot of IKS researchers who would like to present their research findings in Hindi, in Sanskrit, or other Bharatiya languages do not find a platform for publication. So how can I'm sure that this is a challenge that will not have a very quick solution. It will take some time for institutions and mechanisms to be built up so that we have more avenues for IKS research. But how to overcome and navigate this challenge as a newbie IKS researcher?
Yes, Nidhi, this is a big problem. In fact, we are working in this domain of knowledge systems when government AICT is taking it forward. So that will take some time, that we have more journals of this domain itself. Now people are coming, some special issues are coming now. Many journals have started to focus on some special issues with respect to IKS. Just I in Bangalore had one, especially last submission date in March, of a special issue on IKS. So yes, outlets are restricted as of now because uh, of the academic world's all bias against these systems. And the other, the countries which started early on their indigenous systems, they could find outlet very easily. So things which are not in our hands. So what we can do is, one, uh, identify the domain of our study and then connect it with IKS. So suppose someone is working on leadership. So that all the research paper with respect to leadership, you can reach out. Second is, some journals are on the edge, that they consider it. So you can see those journals in which the works of scholars in this domain have been published earlier. So as we know, identify some 15, 20 scholars or researchers from past time, 20, 30 years ago, and in which journal they have published. So from those you can get some list of journals like Professor Babu Shadanand Ramni, Professor Rajen Gupta. These people who have been Professor Subhash Sharma, these people who have already published in their domains, you can search for those journals. With respect to language, that is furthermore a bit more difficult because of the acceptance of the language. However, now in the conferences, etc., we can present here and then try to include our presentations at different places, wherein we try to put in some part of our language, whatever our mother tongue or is, and we can include and try to enter it. So it is the work that the upcoming researchers will have to take head on, because
Correct.
it will require huge effort from
Yes,
all.
I think the initiation has already been done. The movement's already started, and I am sure uh, in the future there'll be many more avenues for publishing IKS research. There are already a few. In fact, just for the knowledge of the participants, we have a WhatsApp group, IKS Research Enthusiasts, in which we keep on sharing um, information about IKS conferences, webinars, publication opportunities. So in case you want to join, I can share the WhatsApp group link. It's a closed group. Yes, I think there's a question by Bikas Ji. Could you please suggest list of books for research scholars who want to pursue his PhD in English literature with respect to IKS? Okay, because I'm not from English literature, but I do have in my reading list an article that tries to connect IKS and English literature. So if you can just text me, I can share that article with you. Just to very quickly respond to Hemaji's comment about papers on Maori philosophy and Chinese philosophy, I think uh, if we find indigenous research in these A-listed or top listed journals, I think that's been done after a lot of academic institutionalization effort, which means that people in Chinese studies or Maori studies have pursued this very systematically. As I told you, unfortunately, in the case of IKS, its branding as Indology is really problematic. So, what Indology people do is different, and what we are trying to do in terms of IKS is different. So, what we may see in these journals is not IKS, it is Indology. It's a colonial presentation of Indian knowledge system. So, I don't think that even if we try and present these our IKS philosophy in those lines, it's going to take a lot of time because our academic endeavors are not institutionalized in top listed American European universities. That's where the barrier lies, in my opinion. This is just something aside. We can talk about this endlessly. Okay, great. Yeah. So yes, so I think we can close for today. Anything else that needs? Yeah, so I will, anybody who wants to join the WhatsApp group, please reach out to me so that we don't end up flooding the chat box or our FDP group with unnecessary information. So it's just a very informal group and we hope to be a collective of sorts. Great. So I think, sir, we can close for the day. I don't think, yeah. Thank you, Anandita ji. All compliments to sir.
No, thank
So
you.
much hearing us. And I'm sure in the past 4 days, like, of course, including today and now only 2 days to go, we have received so much. In fact, I have compiled all the readings that he has shared. So I think we have a lot to read. In that sense. Yes. So how to connect with sir post the session? Sir has already shared his email address. So can you put your email addresses here for the participants? Of course, I'll put it in the group also, but that will be on the last day.
Yes, I'll put it here.
Yes, so we are glad to know that.
All groups. So if anybody wants to connect on phone, also I can mention. If is it okay? I think we have only 30-40 people, right?
Yeah, I think there were 60 because it's
No,
post
as of
7.
now, time has gone. So
Yeah, actually, what's happening is because we also have an FDP 7 to 8, so some people have also registered for that.
okay.
So that's
So I
why they
think
must have
we
exited.
can end the session because it will get delayed.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and I hope that sir, you are also enjoying this experience with us.
Yes,
It's
absolutely. And thank you so much because it is through your initiative only we could connect to the like-minded people and discuss things very freely. So I know many things might be not suitable for all audience, but here we can discuss things which are the free-flowing discussion we can have. So that is the best thing. So thank
yes.
you so much to you for
Thank you.
organizing this. Yes.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure to have us, and we look forward to the last 2 days, that is tomorrow and day after. So thank you, participants, and we may now exit. Namaste. Namaste, sir. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Vishal.
Namaste.
Namaste, Anandita ji.